right? But if you know, if I eat this specific meal plan, it's going to reduce my body fat. It's going to reduce my body fat, and it's going to serve as fuel for me throughout the day. That fuel is going to allow me to go serve my purpose, which is playing the role that we all play in our work, in our community, in our household. Now, if we know, okay, now I'm showing up more in those roles, and food is a fuel source to allow me to do that more efficiently, well, our belief system is going to get stronger. Our self-talk is going to be more positive. And that's the whole game. Once you start recognizing, hey, I'm showing up for myself and what I'm doing is actually working because I believe in it, then we're going to start to tell ourselves a different story. So when you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things change. And that can only happen from the change in habit. When you change the habit and you start to have a plan that you actually believe in, and then you start to see the results, well, the self-talk becomes a lot more positive. We start telling ourselves a lot more better things throughout the day, because obviously we have thousands of thoughts throughout the day. Most of them are negative, mainly because we're not doing things proactively to control those thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to speak on diet. And there are so many diets out there. And definitely each person has their own preference of diet. And there is, I would say, not everyone has the same diet. How do you actually recognize that this certain diet is for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's all different types of diets, right? Like you can do a keto diet, you can do a paleo diet, you can do intermittent fasting, you can do high carbs on some day and no carbs on the other day. You can do macro-based meal plans. It really, for the male over 35 and where my experience is from, macro-based is the most efficient way because it's the most sustainable one. When you do intermittent fasting, which means you sustain from food for 16 hours a day, it is a great tool. It's great to be used at certain times because when you sustain from food for 16 or 18 hours, your body will reduce itself of some inflammation. You'll have some clarity, and it gives your body a chance to kind of recover and detox itself. But that's not sustainable. Because when you start to then eat or include carbs, we can't control those cravings. So most men are eating 2 meals a day, but they're overweight. And it's mainly because they're fasting a great portion of the day. And then what's happening is once they start eating, they can't stop because their body isn't getting a sufficient amount of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats that are optimal for them. So the gut is sending signals to the brain constantly saying, we need more, we need more, we need more. And that's when we start grabbing at things like sugar, because sugar is like cocaine. Once you start a little bit, you want more and you want more and you want more. So those snacks lead to wanting more. When we eat processed food, same thing. Processed food have a great blend of salt and sugar and fats. And once we start eating them, we generally can't stop eating them. Like just to have one chip. Who can have one chip? You can't. There's the right amount of salt and fat and sugar, right? That once you have one, you got to have another. Same thing with an Oreo cookie. You have one, it's very difficult. Your brain's going to keep telling you, go get another one, right? And that's because of the compounds that those foods are made of. And your body then starts sending signals, your gut starts sending signals to your brain that you need another one. So I don't believe in intermittent fasting as an everyday protocol. I believe you can use it as a tool, and it should be used strategically at times, but it's not optimal for men because we can't control those cravings when they do happen. And same thing with keto. Keto is not optimal because, yes, it can be used as a tool where you just eat fats and veggies and protein, but you're sustaining from carbs. Our body needs carbs. It needs it to produce a healthy amount of testosterone. Testosterone is needed to increase your mood, to increase your energy, to increase your muscle mass. So if you sustain from carbohydrates for too long, it's going to tank your testosterone, which is already a problem for men over 35. So as we stay on a keto diet or a paleo diet longer, the more our testosterone starts to drop and some of our blood markers are off. And now we have to be reactive. Where if you just sustain or you implement a plan that constantly is balanced across the day in 4 meals, 5 meals, or 6 meals, maybe it's 3 meals and a snack, but each one has the right amount of balance of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, then you're going to have less cravings. You're not going to have any crashes in energy up and down. Your mood is going to be stable. And all of that supports the ability to exercise and change your body composition because you're now feeding it the proper amount of macronutrients that are then with good exercise get broken down into micronutrients and get distributed throughout the body. And instead of going to fat stores, it's going to repair and recover and grow the muscle that you've been training that day, which is really great. If I'm eating smaller, more frequent meals, my body is working in a furnace-like state, right? Because it knows what's coming down the chute, when it's coming down, and how to process that. So it becomes regimented. Now it knows we need to process this food because more food is coming down in 4 more hours. But if I'm only eating 2 meals a day, right? Just like bears, when they hibernate, bears only eat, but their body knows we're not going to get another meal for the whole season. So we need to hold on to this and we need to slowly burn this food, right? So the bear acts more like a freezer when it consumes food before it goes into a season of drought. Same thing with our body. When we only feed it twice a day, it's not burning through that food. It's holding on to it because it's saying, I don't know when the next meal is coming. So we're going to hold on to that. So as men over 35, the goal should be to take your body from a freezer-like state to a furnace-like state. And the only way you can do that is smaller, more frequent meals that within those meals have the optimal amount of macronutrients so that you're getting the ingredients your body needs to send healthy signals to your brain to say, hey, we're satisfied. Let's now go about our day, right? We shouldn't live to eat. We eat to live.
And what, in terms of what you just explained, it goes back to a conversation I had with a guest yesterday. I believe it was yesterday, whereas we are speaking to a similar conversation around nutrition and fitness.
Yeah.
Whereas he said that once you eat that sugar in terms of, let's say, cookie, and you eat it, and your gut brain will think that it's something that is nutrient, and
yes,
will actually want more, and we won't want that sweet thing, but want something that is nutrient. That's how we actually misinterpret. In terms of sometimes he also added something that was actually fascinating in a way of we misinterpret how the body reacts to us in a way of talking to us. And sometimes we think at a certain time the body wants this, or unfortunately at sometimes it wants a certain thing. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time. Really enjoyed the conversation, and clearly I
I'll
learned a
expand
lot.
on that. Let me finish with a point on that because I have great experience from that piece, which is I did a bodybuilding competition last summer, which meant I sustained from all sugar, all processed foods. It was a very strict diet. It was very regimented. It was very calculated. It was measured and weighed and calibrated every single night. I took progress photos in the morning. I sent them to the coach, and we calibrated and we made all these tweaks. And so I went 10 weeks without having any sugar. Okay. And prior to that, I was dabbling with sugar because I was leaner and I had the ability to do it, but I didn't realize the impact of it. So I sustained from all that. But the minute that competition process ended, we went and kind of had a reward meal, which was a cheat meal with my family. And that included going to get ice cream, and the ice cream had cookies in it. And it was like, well, I had lost all this weight and I was in a very lean state. My body fat was like 6%. And so I could afford to kind of have a higher calorie meal. And so I had a pretty decent meal, but then I indulged on ice cream for the first time. And I can tell you, as disciplined as I was mentally to be able to sustain from that, where it wasn't even a thought for me, the moment I started consuming that, I could not stop myself from going back to get more. I was eating my son's cookie. I was eating my wife's ice cream. I ate my whole shake plus a big cookie. I ate my son's whole ice cream bowl plus his brownie. I was dabbling on my wife's cookie. My brain just kept saying more and more and more, even though I knew this is going to wreak havoc on my digestion system. It goes against my whole goal. And I had all this discipline for 24 hours a day for 10 weeks, and I could not control myself. That's how powerful sugar is. So even you could be the strongest man, the most disciplined and consistent man, but the moment you actually start putting that in, your the signals and the messaging that goes to your brain is almost uncontrollable. And so that relates back to what I was saying about the intermittent fasting, which is once you kind of have these cravings, your body's not getting the sufficient amount of nutrients, you're going to have things that you cannot control. And that's going to make a lot of bad decisions. And those bad decisions are going to be counterproductive to your goal. So sugar is a very powerful drug, and most people consume it every single day. And you don't know until you take it out how much control it has over your life. Same thing with alcohol.
Yeah. Of course, one thing that I've realized when I had a podcast interview, actually we back last month we did a whole series on addiction, and actually from there I found out that how can addiction is powerful in a way of when it comes to sugar, when it comes to in terms of food addiction, when it comes to emotional addiction, when it comes to in a way of alcohol and drugs addiction. And I learned a lot, and it only takes one thing that it can control all your whole life. And again, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the conversation. Really, as I've said before, really learned a lot from today's conversation when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to actually in the general sugar, because I believe that not everyone actually addresses the pandemic that we're facing when it comes to sugar, and when it comes to not actually looking at what we are eating. So
Yeah,
again,
it's very, very important. And
yeah.
so I cover a lot of this on my Instagram, on my YouTube, and on my website. So if any of the listeners are listening, you can find me at dadbod_sculptors on Instagram and also on YouTube. So it's dadbod, one word, _sculptors, which I'm sure he'll have in the description here.
Yeah,
But also my website is dadbodsculptors.com, where you'll be able to find a lot of this information. And it's free information that we give to men over 35 that can go on there and start learning about ways that they can make healthier decisions around training and nutrition, and also increase their strength mentally to be able to get through a journey if they're struggling.
I would definitely do that, leave that on the show. And also when the episode is out, I will tag you on all social media platforms. And again,
Great.
thanks so much for
Thank you.
Hope you have a
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ja, finde ich von der Hand. Was sagt? Ei. Control down. No. Oh.